So some of you guys said you liked the way how I sang Moana in my last video.
Wind in the sail and the sea stays behind me.
So I'll sing the intro to this video. Hey, let's talk about the insular region of Southeast Asia. That's all you get. First of all, it's not all insular because this part of Malaysia connects to the rest of the continent of Asia. Although to be fair, pretty much all of this used to be one big landmass called Sundaland. Anyhow, we got 3 big countries and 3 really small countries. Now let's profile all of them. First off, Malaysia. It's divided into 2 large chunks, one on the peninsula, one on Borneo Island. By the way, Borneo is crazy because it's divided by like 3 separate countries. We'll get to that later. By the way, you would think these islands, the Riau Islands, would belong to Malaysia because it's like right in between the 2 main chunks of Malaysia. But then Indonesia was like, nope, yoink, it's mine. I swear, Indonesians and Malaysians are like the biggest frenemies on the planet. They're always like talking shit and gossiping about each other. But then like 3 seconds later, they're totally making out with each other. They're basically the DR and PR of Southeast Asia. Anyway, back to Malaysia, home of Kuala Lumpur. There's a lot more Chinese influence on the peninsular part of the country. And long story short, Malaysians are super proud of who they are, and they'll claim that like most of Sundaland is like Malaysian influence, and then Indonesians get pissed off when they hear that. And speaking of which, I guess that brings us to Indonesia! It's the largest and most populous out of all these countries. Indonesia is similar to Malaysia, but it's more diverse because they have more islands with more ethnic groups. About half of the entire population lives on Java Island alone, making it the most populous island on Earth. And by the way, Bali is not a country, it's an island in Indonesia. Their national language, Bahasa Indonesia, is basically just a restructured version of the Malaysian language so they can totally understand each other. Next up, Singapore, but they should be called Singa-rich. Singapore is basically a city-state, like the whole island is just basically one big city. Singapore is the most developed out of all the countries, partially because they make a shit ton of money off of the Malacca Strait, which is where like 30% of global trade passes through. They have a very unique society built off of like 3 main demographics, Chinese, Malays, and Indians, and they have 4 official languages. Brunei, this small country on Borneo Island. And remember, they have a small exclave called the Temburong district right here. Brunei is like the rich, conservative Muslim nation that's run by a sultan, and they make a lot of money from their oil reserves. Dude, the sultan is so rich, he once paid Michael Jackson to perform at his 50th birthday. By the way, they speak Malay in Brunei. It's like they're like Malaysians, but they're Bruneians. Yeah. Next up, the small country that everybody forgets, East Timor, or Timor-Leste. They basically share Timor Island with Indonesia, and they also have an exclave called Akusi Ambeno. Portuguese actually is an official language here. They used to be a Portuguese colony, although more people speak the native Tetum language. They got their independence from Indonesia in 2002. It's a whole story. They're the only country that is not a member of ASEAN. They're an observer. They're trying to join. It's a process. And finally, the Philippines, Philippines. Just like Indonesia, they have a lot of different islands with a lot of different ethno-linguistic groups, so they made Filipino the official language, which is basically a standardized version of the Tagalog language. Yes, they have their own problems, but Filipinos are generally known for being like the happiest, jolliest, smiliest Asians. Actually, it depends on who you ask, because some of them consider themselves islanders or like Austronesians. They are also the best singers, not only in Asia, but like possibly the whole world. Karaoke is a national sport here. People are belting out the most melodic, beautiful vocals, and everybody's just on their phone. Nobody cares because they could do better. Anyway, there you go. Insular Southeast Asia. Which one's your favorite?